Hello, my name is Ethan. I'm 32. I work as a carpenter, mostly doing custom cabinets and built-ins for people who want something that'll last longer than the stuff you can buy at the big box stores. I live in a small house about 20 minutes outside of town, the kind of place where you can still hear the cicadas in summer and see actual stars at night. My mom lives about an hour away in the house where I grew up. She's been there for almost 40 years now, and I think she'll die there, which is fine by me. It's a good house, solid bones. I should know. I've fixed just about everything in it at least twice. Last month, she called me on a Thursday evening while I was sanding down a cherrywood bookshelf in my garage. The phone rang 3 times before I could get my hands clean enough to answer it. "Ethan, honey, I need a favor," she said, which is how most of our conversations start these days. "What's broken now, Mom?" "Nothing's broken." "Well, not exactly." To Sarah. You remember Sarah, don't you? My friend from book club. I did remember Sarah, though not particularly well. She was one of those friends my mom had accumulated over the years. The kind who showed up at Christmas parties and summer barbecues. Always polite. Always bringing something homemade. I had a vague memory of a woman with dark hair and laugh lines. Someone who asked thoughtful questions and actually listened to the answers. She's going through a rough patch. Mom continued. Her kitchen cabinets are falling apart. Literally falling apart, and she can't afford to hire one of those big remodeling companies. I told her you might be able to help. I set down my sandpaper and looked at the bookshelf. The grain was starting to show through beautifully. All those subtle variations in the wood that you can only see when you take the time to really look. "What kind of rough patch?" I asked. "The kind where you do what you can to help a friend," Mom said, which was her way of telling me it was none of my business while also making it clear that it was exactly my business if I wanted to be the kind of son she'd raised me to be. "When do you want me to look at it?" "Saturday. She'll make lunch." I agreed because I always agree when my mom asked me to help someone. It's not that I'm particularly generous or anything. It's just that I learned a long time ago that saying no to my mother is more trouble than it's worth. And besides, I like fixing things. There's something satisfying about taking something that's broken and making it work again. Saturday came gray and drizzly, the kind of October day that makes you want to stay inside with coffee and a good book. I drove to Sarah's house, following the directions my mom had texted me, winding through neighborhoods I half remembered from high school, past the park where I used to play baseball and the convenience store where we bought candy with our allowance money. Sarah's house was a small ranch style, probably built in the 70s, with a front porch that needed some attention and flower beds that showed someone had been trying to keep them nice despite everything else going on. I parked in the driveway and sat there for a moment watching the rain beat up on my windshield. I don't know why I was nervous. Maybe because I hadn't really talked to Sarah in years. Or maybe because my mom had been deliberately vague about what kind of help she needed. When someone says their cabinets are falling apart, it could mean anything from loose hinges to a complete structural failure. I grabbed my toolbox from the back of the truck and jogged through the rain to the front door. Sarah answered before I could knock, like she'd been watching for me. "Ethan?" she said, smiling in a way that made her whole face light up. "Thank you so much for coming. Your mother said you might be able to help, but I know you're busy, and I don't want to impose." She was prettier than I remembered, though pretty isn't quite the right word. There was something about her that was more than just attractive, a kind of warmth that made you want to sit down and stay a while. She was wearing jeans and a soft blue sweater, and her hair was pulled back in a way that looked effortless, but probably wasn't. "It's no problem," I said, shaking the rain off my jacket. "Let me take a look and see what we're dealing with." She led me through the living room, which was cozy and lived in, with books stacked on every available surface and a quilt thrown over the back of the couch that looked like someone had made it by hand. The kitchen was at the back of the house, and I could see immediately what she meant about the cabinets falling apart. The upper cabinets were pulling away from the wall, held up by what looked like sheer determination and maybe a prayer or two. The doors hung crooked, and several of the drawer fronts had come loose. The whole thing looked like it had been installed by someone who'd learned carpentry from a YouTube video and hadn't bothered to watch it all the way through. "Oh," I said, setting down my toolbox. "Yeah, I see the problem. Is it bad?" Sarah asked, and I could hear something in her voice that made me look at her more carefully. She was trying to keep it light, but there was worry there. The kind of worry that comes when you're already stretched thin and you're not sure how much more you can handle. It's fixable, I said, which was true, though it was going to take more work than I'd initially thought. Whoever installed these originally didn't use the right fasteners for this type of wall. They're pulling out because they don't have anything solid to anchor into. I spent the next few minutes examining the cabinets more closely, testing the stability of each section, checking the condition of the boxes themselves. The good news was that the actual cabinet boxes were solid. Someone had bought decent materials, even if they hadn't known how to install them properly. The bad news was that I was going to have to take down all the upper cabinets, find the wall studs, and reinstall everything from scratch. How long do you think it would take? Sarah asked. She was standing in the doorway, arms crossed, watching me work. A weekend, maybe 2, depending on what I find when I get everything apart, I said. The bigger question is whether you want to do this repair or if you want to think about replacing them entirely. She was quiet for a long moment, looking at the cabinets like they were a puzzle she couldn't quite solve. I can't afford to replace them right now, she said finally. Actually, I probably can't afford to repair them either, but I can't afford not to repair them, if that makes sense. It made perfect sense. I'd been there myself more times than I cared to count. The place where every option costs more than you have, but doing nothing costs even more. Tell you what, I said. Let me think about it over lunch and we'll figure something out. She smiled at that, the kind of smile that suggested she wasn't used to people offering to figure things out with her. Lunch was homemade soup and fresh bread. The kind of meal that makes you remember why people used to eat together around tables instead of standing over kitchen sinks or sitting in front of televisions. Sarah was easy to talk to. The kind of person who asked questions because she was genuinely interested in the answers, not because she was waiting for her turn to talk. I told her about my work, about the satisfaction of building something that would last, about the cherry bookshelf I'd been working on when my mom called. She told me about her job at the library, about the regulars who came in every week for new mysteries or romance novels, about the children's reading program she'd started that had become more popular than anyone had expected. Your mother talks about you, but all the time, she said as we finished eating. She's very proud of you. You know, I said she's proud of everyone. Is her default setting. No, it's different with you. She lights up when she talks about the things you build, the way you help people. She says you have good hands. I looked down at my hands, which were scarred and calloused from years of working with wooden tools. They weren't particularly good hands, just hands that had learned how to be useful. She talks about you too, I said. Says you're one of the smartest people she knows. That's because I read a lot of books, Sarah said, laughing. Your mother thinks anyone who reads more than the newspaper is a genius. Maybe she's right. After lunch, we went back to the kitchen and I started taking measurements, sketching out a plan for how to properly secure the cabinets. Sarah made coffee and sat at the kitchen table grading papers from what looked like a community college English class. You teach too? I asked. Just one class Tuesday nights, adult learners mostly. People who are going back to school after years of working or people who never got the chance the first time around. She looked up from the papers. It's my favorite part of the week, actually. Why? Because they want to be there. They're not there because someone told them they had to be or because it's expected. They're there because they decided they wanted to learn something new. And that makes all the difference. I thought about that while I worked about the difference between doing something because you have to and doing something because you want to. Most of my work fell into the second category, which was probably why I'd never gotten tired of it. Sarah said after a while, "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "What kind of rough patch are you going through? I mean, you don't have to tell me if you don't want to, but if I'm going to help, it might be good to know what we're working with." She sat down her pen and was quiet for a long moment, looking out the window at the rain, which had picked up again. "I got divorced about 8 months ago," she said finally. "It wasn't anybody's fault, really. We just grew apart, wanted different things. But the house was in both our names, and when we sold it, most of the equity went to paying off debts we'd accumulated, trying to make things work. I bought this place with what was left, which wasn't much." She gestured around the kitchen at the crooked cabinets and the linoleum that had seen better days. "I knew it needed work when I bought it, but I thought I could handle it gradually. Then my hours got cut at the library, budget problems, and I had to take the teaching job to make ends meet. Every month it's something else. Last month it was the water heater. This month it's the cabinets. Next month it'll probably be something I haven't even thought of yet. I nodded, understanding more than she probably realized. I'd been there myself. In the place where you're working as hard as you can but still falling behind, where every small problem feels like it might be the one that finally breaks you. The thing is, she continued, I love this house. I know that sounds crazy given everything that's wrong with it, but I do. It's mine. You know, for the first time in my adult life, I have a place that's completely mine where I can make decisions without having to negotiate or compromise or explain myself to anyone. That doesn't sound crazy at all, I said. Your mother probably told you I can't afford to pay much. My mother didn't mention money at all. Of course, she didn't. Sarah smiled. But she's too polite. But I want to be honest with you. I can pay for materials and I can feed you while you work, but I can't pay your regular rate. I know that's not fair to you, and I understand if you can't do it. I looked around the kitchen again, at the cabinets that were barely hanging on, at the woman who was trying so hard to make a life for herself in a house that seemed determined to fall apart around her. I thought about my mother who had raised me to help people when they needed it. And I thought about the cherry bookshelf sitting in my garage waiting for me to finish it. Tell me honestly, I said, can you handle this? She looked at me confused. Handle what? Having someone around for the next couple of weekends, making a mess, probably getting in your way. I work early and I'm not particularly quiet. I'll try to be respectful, but there's no way to take apart cabinets without making noise and dust. You're saying you'll do it? I'm saying I'll do it for materials and food if you're sure you can handle having me underfoot. For a moment I thought she might cry. Her eyes got bright and she pressed her lips together like she was trying to hold something back. I can handle it, she said finally. But why? I mean, you don't really know me. It was a fair question, and I wasn't entirely sure I had a good answer. Maybe it was because my mother had asked me to help. Or maybe it was because I recognized something in Sarah that reminded me of myself during the lean years when I was first starting out. Maybe it was just because the cabinets were a problem I knew how to solve. And there aren't that many problems in the world that have clear, concrete solutions. Because I said, which was the most honest answer I could give. The following Saturday, I arrived at Sarah's house at 7 o'clock in the morning with a truck full of tools and a thermos of coffee. She met me at the door in pajamas and a robe, her hair sticking up in all directions. I said I work early, I reminded her. I didn't think you meant this early, she said. But she was smiling. Give me 10 minutes to make myself presentable. Take your time. I'll start moving things out of the kitchen. I spent the next hour carefully removing everything from the upper cabinets and packing it into boxes that Sarah had left stacked in the living room. She emerged from the bedroom looking more awake with coffee for both of us and a plate of homemade muffins that were still warm from the oven. Blueberries, she said. I got up at 5:30 to make them. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. You're doing me an enormous favor. The least I can do is feed you properly. The muffins were perfect, not too sweet, with berries that burst on your tongue and a texture that was somehow both light and substantial. I told her so, and she blushed in a way that made me think she didn't get many compliments. My grandmother's recipe, she said. She always said the secret was not to overmix the batter. I started taking down the cabinets after breakfast, working carefully to preserve as much of the original hardware as possible. Sarah had offered to help, but I'd suggested she might be more comfortable staying out of the way while I dealt with the heavy lifting and the power tools. She'd agreed, but I could see her hovering in the doorway watching me work. You can come in, I said after a while. I'm not going to drop anything on you. I don't want to be in your way. You're not in my way. Actually, it might be helpful if you could hand me tools when I asked for them. She came into the kitchen tentatively, like she was entering someone else's space, which I suppose she was in a way. When you're working on someone's house, you temporarily become part of their daily life. And that can be awkward for everyone involved. But Sarah was a good helper. She anticipated what I needed before I asked for it. And she asked intelligent questions about what I was doing and why. By the time I had the first cabinet down, she was handing me the right screwdriver without being asked. You've done this before, I said. Not cabinets, but I helped my dad with projects when I was a kid. He always said I was better at it than my brother because I paid attention to details. He was probably right. We worked together for the rest of the morning and I found myself enjoying the rhythm of it. The way she would hold a cabinet steady while I removed the last screws. The way she organized the hardware in small containers so nothing would get lost. The way she asked questions that showed she was really trying to understand what we were doing. By noon, all the upper cabinets were down, stacked carefully in the garage, and the kitchen looked like a construction zone. The walls were marked with holes where the old fasteners had been, and there was a fine layer of drywall dust over everything. It looks worse before it gets better, I said, surveying the damage. It looks like possibility, Sarah said, which surprised me. Most people would have looked at the mess and seen only destruction. What do you mean? I mean, for months, I've been looking at those cabinets hanging crooked, getting a little worse every day, and feeling like I was failing at something I should have been able to handle. Now they're down and we can fix them properly. It's like starting over, but with better information this time. I understood what she meant. There was something liberating about taking apart something that wasn't working and rebuilding it the right way, even if it meant living with chaos for a while. We broke for lunch sandwiches and soup that Sarah had made the night before. And I found myself telling her about some of the other projects I'd worked on, the challenges and the satisfactions, the customers who became friends and the ones who drove me crazy. Do you ever get tired of it? She asked. Fixing other people's problems. Sometimes, I admitted, but mostly I like it. There's something honest about working with your hands, about taking raw materials and turning them into something useful. And I like the problem-solving aspect of it. Every job is a puzzle. Like this one, though this one's a little different. How so? I wasn't sure how to explain it without sounding presumptuous or overly personal. There was something about working in Sarah's house that felt different from my usual jobs. Maybe it was because she was so genuinely grateful for the help. Or maybe it was because I could see how much the house meant to her, how hard she was working to make it into a home. Usually, I'm working for people who have plenty of options, I said finally. People who could hire someone else if they wanted to, or who could afford to just replace everything instead of fixing it. This feels more important somehow. Important how? Like it matters more. Like if I don't do it right, there aren't a lot of backup plans. She was quiet for a moment, looking down at her sandwich. There aren't, she said. Backup plans, I mean, this is pretty much it for me right now. Then I'll make sure I do it right. That afternoon, I started the real work. Finding the wall studs, patching the holes from the old fasteners, and preparing the mounting points for the new installation. It was tedious work, requiring patience and precision. But it was also satisfying in the way that good preparation always is. Sarah graded papers at the kitchen table while I worked, occasionally looking up to watch what I was doing or to ask a question. There was something comfortable about having her there, a sense of companionship that I hadn't expected. Can I ask you something? She said during one of my coffee breaks. Sure. Why aren't you married? It was a direct question, the kind that might have seemed intrusive from someone else, but Sarah asked it with genuine curiosity, not judgment. I was for a while. I said for a while. It didn't work out. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to pry. You're not prying. It's not a secret or anything. We just wanted different things. She wanted to move to the city, have a different kind of life. I wanted to stay here, keep doing what I was doing. Neither of us was wrong, but we weren't right for each other. Do you regret it not going with her? I thought about it. Really thought about it. Not just giving the automatic answer I usually gave when people asked. No, I said I don't think I would have been happy in the city and I don't think she would have been happy here. It's better that we figured that out before we made each other miserable. That's very mature of you. Took me a while to see it that way. For a long time, I thought I'd failed at something important. And now I think maybe we both succeeded at being honest about what we needed, even though it was hard. Sarah nodded and I could see her thinking about her own divorce, probably wondering if she'd made the right choices, too. What about you? I asked. Any regrets? About the divorce? No. About waiting so long to get divorced. Maybe. We were both unhappy for years. but we kept thinking we could fix it if we just tried harder. Sometimes trying harder just makes things worse. Like those cabinets, I said, gesturing at the wall where they had been hanging crooked for months. Exactly like those cabinets. By the end of the day, I had the wall properly prepared and the first cabinet ready to reinstall. It had taken longer than I'd expected, but it was going to be solid when I was finished. Same time next week, I asked as I packed up my tools. If you're sure you don't mind, I'm sure. The second weekend went more smoothly. Sarah had the coffee ready when I arrived, and she'd cleared more space in the garage for me to work. We fell into an easy rhythm. I would work on the cabinets while she did household tasks or graded papers, and we would take breaks together to talk or share a meal. I learned that she'd been a teacher before she worked at the library, that she'd left teaching because she'd gotten burned out on the politics in the testing requirements that seemed to have nothing to do with actual learning. I learned that she'd loved to cook, but rarely bothered when it was just for herself, that she read at least 3 books a week, that she'd never traveled outside the country, but wanted to visit Ireland someday. She learned that I'd built my own house mostly by myself over the course of 2 years, that I'd never been on an airplane, that I played golf badly but enthusiastically, that I'd once considered going back to school to study architecture, but had decided I preferred working with my hands to sitting in classrooms. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd made different choice? She asked on Sunday afternoon while I was adjusting the hinges on the last upper cabinet. Sometimes, I said, but not in a way that makes me unhappy. More like wondering about a book you didn't read or a movie you didn't see. Curious but not regretful. I do that too. Wonder about the paths I didn't take. Any particular paths? I always thought I'd have children. That was just part of the plan, get married, buy a house, have kids. But my husband kept saying we should wait until we were more financially stable or until he got the promotion he was hoping for or until we traveled more. There was always a reason to wait. She was quiet for a moment and I could hear the regret in her voice, the weight of opportunities that had slipped away while she was waiting for the right time. I'm sorry, I said. It's not your fault and it's not entirely his fault either. I could have pushed harder or made different choices. I just kept thinking we had more time. You still do have time, do I? I'm 38, Ethan. I'm divorced. I'm barely making ends meet and I'm living in a house that's falling apart. I'm not exactly prime mother material right now. I looked at her at the way she was holding herself, like she was trying to take up less space in the world. It made me angry, not at her, but at whatever had convinced her that her worth was tied to some arbitrary timeline or checklist of achievements. That's I said, which made her look up in surprise. What? You're smart. You're kind. You're good with people. You're working 2 jobs to build a life for yourself. You're exactly prime mother material. The only question is whether that's what you want, not whether you're good enough. She stared at me for a long moment, and I wondered if I'd overstepped, said too much, revealed too much about how I saw her. Thank you, she said finally. I needed to hear that. It's just the truth, maybe? But sometimes the truth is hard to see from the inside. I finished installing the last cabinet while she made dinner. Pasta with homemade sauce and a salad from vegetables she'd grown in her back garden. We ate by candlelight because she said it made the kitchen feel more finished, even though there was still work to do on the lower cabinets. This is nice, she said, looking around at the upper cabinets which were now perfectly level and securely fastened to the wall. It's a good start. No, I mean this having dinner with someone talking about real things. I'd forgotten how nice it could be. I knew what she meant. I'd been living alone for 3 years. And while I'd gotten used to the solitude, I'd forgotten the particular pleasure of sharing a meal with someone you actually wanted to talk to. We should do it more often, I said, and then immediately wondered if that was too forward, too presumptuous. I'd like that, she said, which made something warm settle in my chest. Over the next month, I came back every weekend to work on the lower cabinets, which were in better shape than the upper ones but still needed attention. The doors needed to be rehung. The drawers needed new slides and everything needed to be properly aligned and adjusted. But the work was really just an excuse by then. We both knew it, though neither of us said it directly. I could have finished the job in 2 weekends if I'd really pushed. But I found myself taking my time, being extra careful, finding small details that needed attention. Sarah seemed to understand what I was doing, and she didn't seem to mind. She would plan elaborate meals for the weekends, trying out new recipes, and she started buying better coffee, the kind that came from a local roaster instead of the grocery store. We talked about everything. Books, politics, childhood memories, dreams we'd given up, and dreams we still carried. I told her about the house I wanted to build someday with a workshop that had enough space for all my tools and windows that faced east so I could work in the morning light. She told me about the novel she'd been writing for 5 years, adding a paragraph here and there, but never quite finding the courage to finish it. "What's it about?" I asked. "A woman who inherits her grandmother's house and discovers a box of letters in the attic that reveal family secrets she never knew existed." That sounds interesting. It's probably terrible. I don't really know what I'm doing. Have you let anyone read it? God, no. It's not ready for that. Maybe it doesn't have to be ready. Maybe it just has to be honest. She looked at me like I'd said something profound, though I wasn't sure I had. Is that what you do with your work? Just try to be honest. I try to build things that will last, that will do what they're supposed to do. Oh, I guess that's a kind of honesty. I never thought about it that way. What way? That craftsmanship could be a form of honesty, but it makes sense. You can't lie with a cabinet door. Either it hangs straight or it doesn't. Exactly. One Saturday in November, I arrived to find Sarah in the kitchen staring at the cabinets with a strange expression on her face. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Nothing's wrong. It's just they're done, aren't they?" I looked around the kitchen at the cabinets that were now perfectly aligned, the doors that closed smoothly, the drawers that slid in and out without sticking. She was right. They were done. "Yeah," I said. "I guess they are. So this is it." There was something in her voice that made me look at her more carefully. She wasn't just talking about the cabinets. "It doesn't have to be," I said. "What do you mean?" "I mean, maybe we could have dinner sometime when I'm not covered in sawdust and you're not worried about me breaking something." She smiled. The kind of smile that starts small and then takes over her whole face. "I'd like that." "Good. Because I've been thinking about asking you out for weeks. But I didn't want you to think I was only helping with the cabinets to get a date." "Were you?" "No. I was helping with the cabinets because you needed help and I could provide it. But I was hoping maybe we could be friends and then maybe more than friends if you were interested." "I'm interested." "Good." We stood there for a moment looking at each other across the kitchen that we'd worked on together. And I felt something shift between us, some acknowledgement that we were moving from one phase of whatever this was into another. "So what now?" Sarah asked. "Now I clean up my tools and you decide what you want to do for our first official date." "I get to decide. You've been feeding me for weeks. I figure it's my turn to take you somewhere. Actually, as she said, I have an idea, but it might sound crazy. Try me. There's a bookstore in the city that stays open late on Friday nights. They have readings and live music, and they serve wine and coffee. I've always wanted to go, but I never had anyone to go with." "That sounds perfect." "Really? Really? I like books, even if I don't read as many as you do. And I like wine, and I like spending time with you even when I'm not fixing anything. Especially when you're not fixing anything, though the food has been excellent." She laughed, and I felt that warm feeling in my chest again. The one that had been growing stronger every weekend I spent in her kitchen. Our first official date was everything I'd hoped it would be and nothing like what I'd expected. The bookstore was crowded and loud, full of people who seemed to know each other. And the reading was by a poet who spoke in a whisper that made everyone lean forward to hear her. Sarah was nervous at first, fidgeting with her wine glass and apologizing for everything. The crowd, the noise, the fact that we couldn't find seats together. But after the first glass of wine, and the realization that nobody was paying any attention to us, she relaxed. "This is nice," she said during the break between the reading and the music. "It is. I mean, it's different from what I usually do on Friday nights." "What do you usually do on Friday nights?" "Grade papers, watch Netflix, go to bed early." "Exciting stuff. Well, now you can add go to poetry readings with handsome carpenters to the list." "Did you just call me handsome?" "I did. Is that presumptuous?" "A little, but not inaccurate." The music was better than in the poetry. A folk duo who played songs that made you want to drive back roads with the windows down. Sarah knew some of the songs and sang along quietly, and I found myself watching her more than listening to the music. You have a nice voice, I said during one of the quiet moments between songs. I used to sing in church when I was younger. Nothing fancy, just the choir. Do you miss it? Sometimes there's something about singing with other people that makes you feel connected to something larger than yourself. Is that why you like teaching? Maybe. I never thought about it that way, but maybe. After the music ended, we walked around the city for a while looking in shop windows and talking about nothing in particular. It was cold enough that our breath showed in the air, and Sarah had forgotten her gloves, so I gave her mine. You don't have to do that, she said. I want to. Your hands will get cold. I'll live. We ended up at a diner that was still open, sharing a piece of pie that was too big for one person and too good to leave unfinished. Sarah told me more about her novel, about the characters who had become real to her over the years of writing and rewriting, about the way the story had changed as she changed. I think I might actually finish it, she said. Having the kitchen done, having something in my life that's actually completed and working properly, it makes me think maybe I can finish other things, too. I think you can finish anything you set your mind to. You have a lot of faith in me. I have a lot of evidence you've been juggling 2 jobs in a falling-apart house and still managing to be kind to everyone around you. That takes strength. It doesn't feel like strength. Most of the time, it feels like barely hanging on. Sometimes those are the same thing. On the drive home, Sarah fell asleep in the passenger seat, her head tilted against the window. I drove carefully, taking the long way so I wouldn't have to wake her up too soon. There was something peaceful about driving through the quiet streets with her sleeping beside me. Something that felt like a preview of other nights, other drives, other moments of simple companionship. When I pulled into her driveway, she woke up slowly, blinking in confusion. We're home, I said. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to fall asleep. Don't apologize. You looked peaceful. I felt peaceful. I haven't felt that way in a long time. I walked her to the door and we stood there for a moment, both of us knowing this was the part of the evening where we had to decide what came next. Thank you, she said. For tonight, for the cabinets, for everything. Thank you for letting me help, Ethan. Yeah. I'm glad your mother asked you to come look at my kitchen. Me too. She kissed me then softly, tentatively, like she wasn't sure if it was the right thing to do. I kissed her back, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world, like something we'd been moving towards since that first Saturday when she'd handed me tools and asked thoughtful questions about what I was doing. I should go, I said, though I didn't want to. I know. Can I call you tomorrow? You better. That was 6 months ago. Now Sarah and I see each other 3 or 4 times a week, sometimes more. I've met her friends from the library in the book club, and she's met the handful of people I consider close friends. My mother approves, which was never really in question. And Sarah's parents, who live in another state, seem to like me based on the phone conversations we've had. We haven't talked about moving in together or getting married or any of the big decisions that couples eventually have to make. We're taking it slowly, learning each other's rhythms and habits, figuring out how to build something together without rushing or forcing it. Sarah finished her novel last month. It took her 3 weeks of staying up late and getting up early, writing in bursts of inspiration that surprised both of us. She let me read it when she was done, and it was better than I'd expected. Funny and good and true in all the ways that matter. What are you going to do with it? I asked after I'd finished reading. I don't know. Maybe try to find an agent or enter it in some contests. Maybe just put it in a drawer and be glad I finished it. You should try to get it published. Maybe I'm still getting used to the idea that it's actually done. I understand that feeling. There's something strange about completing a project that's been part of your life for so long. You're proud of it, but you're also a little lost without it. I've been working on a new project myself, a dining room table for Sarah, made from the same cherrywood as the bookshelf I was working on when my mother first called. It's going to be big enough for dinner parties with leaves that can be added when she has the whole book club over, but intimate enough for quiet meals for 2. I haven't told her about it yet. It's going to be a surprise for her birthday next month. I've been working on it in the evenings after she goes home, sanding and shaping and fitting the pieces together with the kind of care that comes from making something for someone you love. Because I do love her. I realized it sometime in February on a snowy Sunday when we spent the whole day reading in her living room. Her with a novel and me with a woodworking magazine, occasionally sharing interesting passages or just enjoying the comfortable silence between us. I haven't told her that yet either, though I think she knows. It's there in the way we've started planning things weeks in advance. In the way she started leaving coffee for me when she knows I'm coming over early. In the way I've started thinking about her house as our place instead of her place. Maybe I'll tell her when I give her the table. Or maybe I'll wait for the right moment. The way I waited to ask her out. The way I waited to kiss or take a kiss. The way I've learned to wait for things to develop naturally instead of forcing them. If you've ever felt like this, like you found something worth waiting for, something worth building slowly and carefully, hype this video. Sometimes we all need to know that good things can happen when we're patient enough to let them unfold in their own time. This morning, I got a call from my mother. She wanted to know if Sarah and I were coming to Sunday dinner this week, and if we were, should she make extra because Sarah's friend Clara was in town and might want to join us. Of course, I said. Sarah loves your Sunday dinners. And you? Do you love them too? I love spending time with people I care about. That's not what I asked. My mother has always been good at asking the questions that matter, even when they make me uncomfortable. Yes, I said. I love them too. Good. Because Sarah called me yesterday to ask if she could help with the cooking. She wants to learn how to make my pot roast. Why? Because she said she wants to be able to cook it for you when I'm not around to do it myself. I thought about that for a moment, about what it meant that Sarah was thinking ahead to a time when she might be cooking Sunday dinners for me, about the way she was already weaving herself into the fabric of my family. What did you tell her? I told her I'd be delighted to teach her, and I told her she's welcome in my kitchen anytime for any reason. Good, Mom. I'm proud of you, Ethan. For what? For being the kind of man who helps people when they need it. For being patient enough to build something real instead of just looking for something easy. For making Sarah happy. She makes me happy too. I know she does. I can hear it in your voice. After I hung up, I went out to the garage to work on the table. The finish was almost ready for the final coat, and the grain was showing through beautifully. All those subtle variations in the wood that you can only see when you take the time to really look. I thought about Sarah, about the way she'd looked at those crooked cabinets and seen possibility instead of failure, about the way she trusted me to fix something that mattered to her, about the way we'd built something together without really meaning to. Sometimes the best things happen when you're not looking for them. When you're just trying to help someone with their cabinets and you end up finding something you didn't even know you were missing. Sometimes being honest about what you can handle leads to discovering you can handle more than you thought. I'm planning to ask Sarah to marry me probably sometime this summer when the garden she's been working on is in full bloom. I haven't bought a ring yet, but I've been thinking about what kind of ring would suit someone who values substance over flash, who appreciates things that are built to last. Maybe I'll make the ring myself. Or maybe I'll find someone who can make something custom, something that's as unique and thoughtful as the woman I want to give it to. I have time to figure it out. We have time to figure it out together. For now, it's enough to know that when Sarah asked me if I could handle helping her with her kitchen, neither of us knew we were really asking if I could handle becoming part of her life and if she could handle becoming part of mine. The answer it turns out is yes. We can handle it. We can handle all of it. The broken things that need fixing, the dreams that need encouragement, the quiet moments that need sharing, and the love that needs time and space to grow into something strong enough to last. The story of Ethan and Sarah unveils a timeless life lesson. The most meaningful connections often emerge from selfless acts of kindness and the courage to embrace life's possibilities, even amidst brokenness. Ethan's decision to help Sarah with her crumbling kitchen cabinets, driven by his mother's gentle nudge and his own instinct to fix what's broken, wasn't just about carpentry. It was about building trust and companionship. Sarah's vulnerability, her honest admission of her struggles, and her vision of her dilapidated kitchen as a symbol of possibility mirror the resilience we all need to transform challenges into opportunities. Their slow, deliberate journey from shared meals to shared dreams teaches us that love and connection thrive on patience, honesty, and the willingness to see beyond the surface, to find beauty in the grain of the wood or the heart of a person. This story resonates deeply, stirring memories of moments when we've helped or been helped, when small acts of care led to profound bonds. It reminds us that life's greatest rewards often come when we step into someone else's chaos. not to fix it all at once, but to stand beside them as they rebuild. What's your story of helping or being helped that sparked an unexpected connection? Have you ever found love or friendship in the midst of fixing something broken? Share your heartfelt experiences in the comments below. Your story could inspire someone to take a chance on kindness. If Ethan and Sarah's journey warmed your heart, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more stories that celebrate the beauty of human connection and resilience. Let's create a community that believes in building things that last. Join us today and let's keep these stories